When this Parliament commenced a little over a year ago, we assured Victorians that we would play a constructive role, as well as holding the Allan Labor government to account. And we've shown that in the work cover bill that's been before the Parliament in recent months. We were unhappy on behalf of employers and employees with the half-baked work cover bill that was brought to this Parliament late last year. And we assured Victorians we would do the work constructively and positively as an opposition to secure improvements to that legislation. One of the first things we did against all efforts of the Allan Labor government was to establish an upper house inquiry. We promised Victorians that that would be a quick inquiry which would look at some early opportunities to improve this half-baked bill. And that inquiry did report, and out of that report we've seen a number of improvements that we in the Coalition have been able to secure, and we believe the bill can be passed in that form, but only because of the work of the Coalition working with non-government MPs in the upper house to secure those improvements to the bill. Now these are improvements such as, first improvement I want to mention is a premium freeze for employers in Victoria for the 2024-25 year. We've secured that on behalf of employers, but we've also secured important concessions that will favour employees. A better return to work scheme, one that works. A work cover scheme that faces more scrutiny and transparency. One of the reasons why work cover collapsed and no one knew about it was because there was no scrutiny or transparency. So a number of the concessions revolve around better transparency, reporting, scrutiny, more consultation with unions, workers and employers to make sure that on behalf of employees we get a system that's fair and that works, and on the other hand a system that is viable. This premium freeze for employers will help many of them at a time when land taxes and payroll taxes and other fees and charges under the Allan Labor government continue to skyrocket. And I am concerned as the Alternative Premier that many business leaders are saying to me that they are seriously thinking, many already have, of relocating their businesses to other jurisdictions that don't have such punitive tax regimes as Victoria. So the concessions we've secured on work cover will at least assure Victorian employers that the Coalition's been working hard to make sure there are no premium increases in the next financial year, and you can get them in terms of their physical and mental health to get them back with their colleagues and enjoying their company and working together. Just on the housing approval numbers today, these are the approval numbers we've seen in over a decade. 51,000 approvals in Victoria. That's 20,000 down on Ellen and her government need to get serious about this. Go back to the drawing board. We'll work with them just like we did on the work cover bill to improve the housing statements, objectives and plans for actual practical achievement of these targets. But on current numbers we will continue to see Victoria fall well short of the housing targets we need in this state as our population grows. I'll hand over to Cindy.
Thanks, John. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Well, we've known the work cover scheme is broken. The Minister has said it's broken and it needs major repairs. Now, that repair isn't just legislative, but they have to get their act together and pick up the whole scheme, which has been failing so many. Through the negotiations, we are so pleased that we've been able to firstly secure that premium freeze for the next 12 months. This is something that employers have been screaming about because they've been hit with all sorts of taxes at the minute. Land tax bills are just about sending them to the wall as well. And this is something we've heard loud and clear. Return to work has been a failure for so many injured workers, and that's just not good enough. The government really needs to pick up their game there, and so the changes that we've been able to introduce and work with the government on, I think has really forced them to do that work, because they hadn't done that work in the first instance. When they came to us in November last year, they hadn't done the work. That was clear, and we have forced them to do that work through the inquiry. On top of that, they are now committed to doing the consultation, which they didn't do in the first place. I've done so much consultation very, very widely, and it's not just to employer groups, it's within the medical field, the allied health field, to get a good understanding of what's happening with the lawyers on both sides of the fence. Rehabilitate stakeholder consultation should have been done wasn't, but through our negotiations, that's going to happen. And importantly, by the end of the year, they will have an independent review of the scheme that will be reported back to Parliament. So that means it'll be public. We'll all get to see what's in that. That'll look not just at the financials through to see whether or not it's doing what it should be doing or whether it's not, and whether further changes need. And I think we've been exceptionally constructive helping the government to really fix up their scheme, which is fundamentally broken. So.
Any questions for Cindy?
Well, the consultation, is your support contingent on them doing the consultation first, or?
Sorry, Kieran.
The consultation process, does it have to happen before your support in the other house, or is it happening alongside?
Alongside. We've agreed with the government. They've given me an undertaking that they're going to start that pretty soon, and the bill's before the Parliament this week, so it'll happen at a similar time.
Cindy, does that mean anything like the stress or burnout idea of getting rid of that is still on the table?
The bill substantially for that is still on the table, but the independent inquiry, the review that will be done, will look at all of those as the year progresses and report back.
Sorry, so the only changes negotiated are the freeze on premiums and this review.
Oh, no, the consultation
Yep.
is really important that they undertake that because they hadn't done it. The Return to Work Victoria, they've given me an outline of the objectives and the functions of Return to Work Victoria, which they had been silent on previously, and they hadn't actually done that work. So they've done that now, and I'm pleased about that. The freeze, the independent inquiry, the consultation process, and the improvements in Return to Work Victoria.
But the changes to actually make it more sustainable, namely in getting rid of some of those mental health conditions, stress and burnout, that hasn't been agreed on?
The bill will go through with a couple of amendments that will be introduced today, and we won't be opposing.
So would you be hoping for more freezes past this financial year?
Absolutely.
After this review? So was that part of your negotiations? Were you asking for more than just a year freeze?
Look, it would have been ideal if we had 2 years premium freeze. I've been on the record of saying that's something that we were really keen to do. And I think by the end of this year, we'll have a feel for how the scheme is working and whether they can cap those free premiums again for the following financial year, which I'd really hope that they can do.
Can I just add on that, Cindy? A lot of the changes that Cindy has secured around return to work, injury prevention, consultation is all about trying to reduce the incidence of claims and also the life cycle of claims. So if you are able to get workers back to work with their colleagues, they're happier. All the research shows that. All the data shows they're happier, more productive if you can get them back to work. So whilst we would have liked the premium freeze to be longer, all of the structural changes we've tried to secure here, and many of which we have secured, will actually help reduce the exposure of the scheme to longer life claims. And that's a good thing for workers.
What happens if we get to the end of the year, the scheme's still unsustainable, and the government says they want to hike premiums again? What levers do you have to pull then?
Yeah, that'll be interesting if it gets to that point. They'll decide, as I understand, around about this time, March, April next year, about what the premium rate will need to be going forward. So they'll start to have a bit of an idea, I think, through that independent review that's going on this year, and we'll have a better handle on that at the time. But one of the things, did you see like a bit of false economy almost? A few years ago they wanted to limit the amount of money spent in rehabilitation, occupational rehabilitation. So what happened? Nobody did the work to help people get back to work, and so they didn't, and then it blew out at the other end. So you've got to make sure that all of the levers are working in the right direction at the same time, and you're not getting unintended consequences, and that independent inquiry will certainly look at whether there are unintended consequences.
I think you sort of pressed that, but are you concerned about the argument that this will push... Sorry.
May as well just be buried.
Are you concerned about the argument from the unions that this will just push more people into the health system, the mental health system, who would be on the workers' compensation scheme? Do you think that argument holds up?
This is what Return to Work is all about. This is what the focus of Return to Work is, because we know the longer people are off, the harder it is to get back to work. And, there's a whole lot of other factors. If you've taken opioids for 14 days, that really has an impact on people getting back to work. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done up front to make that difference, and the government needs to be doing that to support the workers. It's them who'll win.
Indeed. Yeah. Sure, absolutely.
What do you see as a safe number that the state government would build rather than the 800,000?
Well, the government did commit to building 80,000 a year. Look, Victoria has the potential, if it's governed well and led well, to be building many more houses than 51,000 a year. If you have a tax regime that doesn't deter investment in residential construction, you'll get more houses built. You'll get more workers who are available to work on major projects if your big build projects don't run over time, leaving aside the question that they're run over budget. So when we talk about supporting this top priority that we have in Victoria of trying to make sure we are building enough houses for a growing population, you've got to look at the whole board. It's the costs of construction in Victoria, which are way higher than elsewhere. You've got to look at the workforce, which is under more pressure because of the blowouts and the time delays on major projects. We don't have nearly enough graduates coming through, and vet graduates with the right vocational training and skills to be able to work on major projects. So we look at all of these things. When we look at the tax regime, we know from business leaders they're not investing in residential construction like they were before. And we've seen residential construction itself is down, in addition to the approvals themselves. So I think the government's looking at one little bit at a time, and it's not looking at the whole board. You need a broader vision to actually understand the solutions that are required in this.
Tim Pallas was asked today if he's going to resign after the May budget and said he's not. Do you believe that?
I want to believe it. Because I think Victoria needs anyone who can try and turn this around. I'm not sure Tim has the capacity. I like him personally, but he's not up to the job. And our state's reputation, our tax regime, all of the data points around housing construction, residential construction, approvals, taxes, debt, interest, all of the important things which have real life impacts on people, they're all heading south. And I don't know who I'd replace him with, but it's getting to a point where anyone else will do. And so whilst I like Tim, my concern is with the future of the state.
Just very quickly on the Extinction Rebellion protesters this morning, they held up traffic on the Westgate Bridge. What's your response to that? Is it acceptable, and what kind of consequences would you hope they face?
Oh, look, I don't think anyone has the right to hold up people's free movement. I've always said, and I know you've heard me say this before perhaps, that the right to protest isn't a right to impose on others physically by obstructing them. People have jobs to do, they have families to feed, they've got household priorities that they have to meet. And when people are interfering with the ability of people to go about their normal lives, that may be convenient for the protesters, and that may be what they want, but it's not fair on everybody else. You can make your point, you can do it peacefully, you can do it visibly, and you can do it in a way which doesn't intrude upon the rights of others. And I'm someone who believes strongly that we need balance here. I've always supported the right to free speech and the right to protest peacefully. This isn't peaceful protest. This is protests which impose, if you like, trespass on the rights of other people. And we need balance in our democracy. That's important.
Can I also ask about, there's been a report out today about Monash Uni spending $127 million on a farewell dinner for...
I think it was 127,000.
Yes, sorry.
I think Victoria, 127 million.
I'm used to dealing with millions.
That's right.
Yeah, do you think that's a good use of money, considering the sector's obviously in a lot of financial turmoil at the moment?
Yeah, look, can I make this point that the Governor, Mara Gardner, I have enormous respect for. She is our Governor, our head of state in Victoria, and I have to respect that and state that up front and do so very willingly. I've had very pleasant meetings with her and attended a number of functions with her. And as our Governor, I think it's great that someone of that kind of distinction and accomplishment is our head of state. That said, I do think that at this time, particularly when we've just had a universities accord which talks about the financial pressures that our tertiary sector and our vocational sector are facing today, when we've got to get more people through with skills in vet and in academic qualifications as well, the amount of money spent on that, I think most Victorians would be saying that probably wasn't appropriate at this time, and I don't think it was, but I don't want that in any way to reflect on our fine Governor. Thank you very much. Cheers, everyone.